As soon as I said those words, I knew I had made a mistake, but it was too late. Something like that cannot be undone, particularly in front of his supervisor. This is the tale of how a stupid joke at a work party completely upended my marriage. My name is Danielle, and I'm 32 years old from Fort Worth, Texas. Troy, my 37-year-old husband, asked me to his company's end-of-year work party last Friday. I must admit that I wasn't really eager to go. It's always awkward at these business gatherings, and I'm never sure what to discuss with his colleagues. However, Troy persisted, stating that it was crucial and that having me accompany him would enhance his image. Okay, I thought, I'll pretend to be the helpful wife for a night. I even put on the green dress he likes, took extra time to do my hair and makeup, and made an effort to look put together, whatever that means. But as soon as we arrived, I realized it would be one of those evenings where I simply had to nod and grin. The first hour went well. I behaved myself, we socialized, and we engaged in the typical "how do you know Troy" dialogue with his coworkers. By the time supper was served, I was actually beginning to feel fairly decent after having one drink and then another. Then he arrived, Mr. Riek, Troy's supervisor, whom Troy always gripes about at home. Troy claims that he is never with anything I do and is constantly on my back. Instead of being the sour, gray-haired micromanager I had imagined him to be, Mr. Riek was unexpectedly young, possibly in his late 40s, sharply dressed, and the type of man who commands a room without even trying. I immediately understood why Troy was constantly anxious about him. Troy, his supervisor, I, and a few other co-workers are seated around this large circular table. While everyone is giggling and discussing their plans for the holidays, the topic of football somehow comes up. Troy's passion for the Cowboys is a way of life. It turns out, however, that Mr. Riek is an Eagles fan, and if you know anything about football, you know that supporters of the Eagles and Cowboys don't mix. I could see Troy was getting that expression on his face as they were jokingly teasing each other back and forth. It's the expression he gets when he's losing a debate but refuses to acknowledge it. At that point, I took action. Well, if you spent as much time at home as you do defending the Cowboys, maybe you'd actually win something for once, I remarked, leaning forward and smiling. The table was silent and I could feel the air being drawn out of the room. Troy didn't laugh as Mr. Riek pounded the table and let out this loud "ha, I like her. She's got a point." He sat back in his chair, his eyes fixed on the table as if mentally counting to 10. Without even looking at me, I should have stopped there. I knew I didn't, but I knew it, not me. No, I needed to intensify my efforts. I added, snickering slightly, maybe if you put that kind of energy into our finances, we wouldn't be arguing about the cable bill every month as if I were being crickets. His boss only took a sip of his beverage. I got that awkward ouch smile from one of his coworkers. Troy's leg bumped mine beneath the table, giving me a small shut-up signal. I choose to disregard it. With a head tilt, I told him, "Don't look at me like that," as if he were being dramatic. "I'm just joking, you know I'm joking," he whispered softly. "No, Danielle." In a voice as low as a razor, he resumed eating, chewing as if he were grinding rocks between his teeth, saying, "You're doing too much." Forks scraped plates at the table and no one spoke. I tried to dismiss it as insignificant, but I had a gut feeling that I had gone too far. The remainder of the meal was awkward. Troy hardly ever spoke to me, and when he did, his responses were brief and contained only one word, "Yeah, and I'm fine." I ought to have shown regret, even though I should have. I didn't. I was still thinking, I'm right. He's overacting. However, Mr. Riek brought it up once more after supper. "You're funny, Danielle," he replied, giving Troy a back pat. Troy didn't even pretend to laugh when I said, "She really keeps you on your toes, huh?" He simply nodded and replied, "Yep." I realized that it wasn't just a joke. It was a matter of respect. And I knew that I had just made him look foolish in front of the one person he had been trying to impress all year. We were all expected to go to the bar area for drinks after dinner. "I guess it's my bedtime, huh?" Troy simply got his coat, turned to me and said, "Let's go." Troy didn't even ask whether I wanted to stay. Nobody chuckled. We didn't talk at all on the way home. His foot was heavy, his eyes were forward, and his jaw was clenched as he drove like he was angry at the gas pedal. I kept looking at him out of the corner of my eye while I was sitting there browsing through my phone and acting indifferent. I made an effort to strike up a conversation as soon as we got into the driveway. He sat for a moment with his hand still on the wheel, breathing deeply and slowly as if he were giving himself one final chance to relax. You're really going to be over that? It was just a joke. Troy, nah, Danielle, it's not just the joke. It's you. I'm tired of this. He turned to face me, made eye contact, and walked inside after slamming the door. Left me sitting there without waiting for me or holding the door open as he usually does. I sat in the car for a minute, half perplexed, partly angry, my heart pounding. What went wrong? It was a joke, nothing serious. Men constantly make jokes like that with one another when I do it. Why is it different? He was upstairs, not in the living room when I entered, still on the defensive and prepared to quarrel. Troy, seriously. You're really going to act like this? I called after him while still following him in my heels. He was packing a bag in our bedroom when I found him, a sack. What are you doing? With my fists on my hips, I inquired. He zipped it up and gave me a tired but strong look before asking, where are you going? I'm done, Danielle. I thought he was playing a bluff, so I chuckled and asked, done with what? He didn't respond when I said, oh, come on, you're not going anywhere over a joke. He brushed past me, picked up his suitcase and headed downstairs. Still trying to win the debate, I followed him. I crossed my arms and muttered, you're being ridiculous, maintaining my sarcastic tone. He reached the door, turned to face me, and spoke the words that finally got to me. You never know when to stop, Danielle. That's the problem. He then left, saying, I'm not chasing you, Troy. If you want to be stupid, be stupid. He wasn't playing, I realized as I remained there, still expecting him to return in a few minutes. When I heard his car start and saw the taillights go out of sight down the street. For a long time, I just stood at the front door and stared at the deserted street as if he could turn round at any moment. I even took out my phone, almost anticipating a text saying, come outside, but there was stillness instead. I closed the door, locking it as if it meant something, and bit the inside of my cheek while leaning against it with my arms folded, still wearing that dumb green dress. My heels clicking on the floor, I went upstairs and perched on the edge of the bed, saying, he'll be back. He always comes back. We've had arguments worse than this. And he's never left for more than an hour. The pillow was still dented from where he'd slept the night before, and the side of the bed appeared so vacant. I was irritated rather than depressed as I glanced at it. I grabbed my phone and texted him, where are you at? But got no response. He's so dramatic. I put the phone down and stood up, entering the closet where his suitcase had been and saying, okay, so now he wants to play hardball. How absurd that he actually packed his duffel bag as if he were going on a vacation or something. My initial impulse was to call his mother. Yes, he detests that. He constantly accuses me of tattling on him when I rushed to his mother, although I didn't. I was aware that she would most likely support him if I did, and I didn't want to listen to a lecture tonight. I decided to call my sister Rachel instead. On the third ring, she answered. I sighed and flopped onto the bed, asking, what's up? She chuckled and remarked, Troy is being foolish. UHO, what did you do this time? Offended. I sat up and asked, what did I do? Why do you always assume it's me? Because it's usually you, Danielle, she replied plainly. What happened? I filled her in on everything, including the joke, the party, and the entire scene at the table. Naturally, I made it seem insignificant, just a little back and forth, nothing major, for good measure. I also included a couple of he's so sensitive remarks. I snapped back, irritated that she wasn't supporting me. Girl, Rachel whispered quietly. You said that in front of his boss. Yeah, so it's not like I lied, I answered. Danielle. Rachel interrupted, her voice more acerbic this time. He's always talking about how stressed out he is at work, so maybe if he handled things differently, he wouldn't be so. I sat silently for a moment, saying, you made him look small. Men don't play around with that. You disrespected him in front of his boss, okay, but it was just a joke. He's being childish. Was he laughing? She said. No, her words hung thick in the air. Then it wasn't a joke. When she does things that make too much logic, I detest it. He departed with his luggage packed and everything, but I changed the topic nevertheless. Wait, did he just walk out the door? Yes, I said, throwing a cushion across the room as if he had finished. However, I'm not pursuing him. It's up to him if he wants to act out. You might want to correct this, girl. HEK's not the type to bluff like that, she remarked. I whispered, heck, we'll be back, but for the first time, I wasn't quite convinced. I didn't get much sleep that night. I kept checking my phone for him whenever I heard a small sound outside. But it wasn't him. The hours crawled by. Midnight. 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, no calls, no texts yet. Finally, I sent him another petty text since that's what I do. Oh, so you're simply going to stop talking to me? Very mature, Troy. No answer. I was pacing the house at 3 in the morning, talking to myself as if I were having a heated disagreement with him. But he wasn't even there. I mentally reenacted everything. I would take it back, but perhaps I shouldn't have said it. He's being soft. No. He's an adult. He can take it if he can give it. In the end, I dozed off on the couch and woke up to the sound of birdsong and the vibration of my phone on the coffee table. I thought it was him for a while, but it was actually a message from Rachel. Any updates from Troy? I didn't respond at all. I stood up, stretched, and looked at the call history on my phone. No texts, no missed calls. I promised myself that he would return, so I would not try to contact him again. However, as the hours went by, that assurance began to falter. By midday, I stood at the kitchen counter and tapped my fingernails, wondering if I should contact him. I detest having to make the initial call, therefore I didn't want to. But when I realized his car wasn't in the driveway, that pride began to weigh heavily. What happened to him? I made a call. After 2 rings, it immediately went to voicemail. Oh, I said, shaking my head, that's what we're doing now. All right. Another 2 hours went by with nothing. I began to question whether he was lodging with a friend. I knew better than to assume it was Brandon, his best friend from boyhood. Brandon's place is like a frat house, and he is single. There would be no peace for Troy. Marcus, perhaps his brother. I gave Marcus a call. Hey, Danielle, he said in a casual tone. Hey, are you with Troy? I asked, attempting to sound casual. I haven't seen him. No. Why? Oh, no reason, just checking. I lied while biting my thumbnail. You good? As if sensing a problem, he inquired. Before he could ask any more questions, I said, yeah, I'm fine, and hung up. By now, I was beginning to experience that panic, that nagging sense in the back of your mind when you think you might have miscalculated something. But not quite fear. He didn't make the call until later that evening. I pretended not to care when I answered on the first ring. Wow, I just realized you have a wife, I murmured, resting one hand on the counter. Danielle, he began in a cool, collected voice, we need to talk. Oh, so you want to talk now? Where have you been lately, Knight? Don't do that, he interrupted me. I'm not trying to trick you. You stormed out like an adolescent, and I'm the one playing games. Danielle, I'm exhausted, so I stormed out. I'm sick of you embarrassing me. Not a word. For that one, I didn't have a response. Look, he said, I'm not going home tonight. I'm spending some time at my mother's house. I require room. I laughed, but it was more of a defensive tactic than a genuine chuckle. What's the space for? You behave as if I had cheated on you. Slowly, he answered, no, you didn't cheat, but you break me down like you want me to feel small. I no longer live like that. My chest constricted, I said, fully embracing the victim role. Wow. So now I'm the bad guy. Is a joke the reason you're leaving our marriage? He let out a sigh. He was stroking his face, as he always does when and I could hear it. Danielle, isn't just about last night. He added softly, it's crucial. It's the manner in which you address me. It's the manner in which you present yourself as infallible. You and I can't win. I've given up trying. My heart began to race. This is what you're actually doing. My voice cracked as I asked, are you truly destroying our marriage? He answered, no, you threw it away. And his words struck a deeper chord than I had anticipated. I'm simply leaving the mess behind. Before I could answer, I heard the call terminate. Click, stunned. I sat with the phone still clamped to my ear as if he might return. He didn't. I sat there looking at the call-ended screen as if it might change for a while. The phone still in my grasp. I didn't cry, but my throat felt constricted. This kind of thing doesn't make me cry. He always returns, therefore he'll be back. However, something about this time felt different. As the minutes passed, I returned his call, but it went straight to voicemail when I called again. I'm not that desperate. Therefore, I wasn't going to leave a message. After scrolling to and hovering on Rachel's name, I decided against it. In any case, I knew what she would say. Well, you did kind of push him too far this time remark would hit me, and I was too exhausted to listen, so I sat by myself. I began to see the change in my chest on day 2. You know how it feels to start going over everything again and listening to what the other person said. His words stuck in my head like music that I was unable to stop listening to. You make me feel small by breaking me down. I no longer live like that. I've given up trying. For the first time, I was unable to turn those words into something that lifted my spirits. Thus, I detested them. I couldn't hold it against him if he was too sensitive, emotional, or immature. This time, it was me, not him. I didn't call, though. Even then, I couldn't because of my pride. I did something worse instead. Funny how people think they're the victim when they're the problem all along. Stay gone if you want to, I'm good. Over here, I added a selfie for good measure, dressed up as though I had an important place to be. Even though I hadn't left the house within 48 hours. I took a back seat and watched the comments come in. That's exactly the kind of vibe I was looking for, confirmation of, girl, you deserve better. If he can't handle you at your worst, he doesn't deserve you at your best. I was enamored with the texts I received from a few of my friends. Yes, I'm doing fine. I'm always, however, that phone remained silent on the third night. No missed calls, no where are you, texts, nothing. I seemed to be non-existent. I broke that night. I was standing there looking at our wedding picture on the mantle as if it were a murder scene. I couldn't help but notice that his eyes were tired and my grin now appeared forced in the photo. It was glaring now, although I had never noticed it before. Was he also worn out then? I turned that old wedding picture over in my hands while I sat on the couch. The date was written in Sharpie on the back, April 22nd, 2016, trying to convince myself that I had nothing to do with this. I rubbed my thumb over it. Didn't I give him everything when he had nothing? I stayed, cleaned, and cooked. I kept it in place this time, though. The voice in my head that didn't require Rachel or anyone else to check me was louder. I ignored it, turned the photo back over, and placed it on the coffee table. Despite its voice, you never apologized. I had no obligation to apologize to him. He went too far. He could have stayed and worked things out like an adult man, but instead he fled like a child. He is to blame for that. In any case, I told myself that. But I realized I had made a mistake by the 5th night. Not even a "how are the kids" text. No calls, no texts. I realized then that it was serious. Troy always checked on the kids, even while we were having a disagreement. I was aware of his deepest love for them. My heart began to race in a manner that had never happened previously when I didn't hear from him. I gave him another call, voicemail. This time, I left a message midway through. My voice broke even though I was trying to sound strong. Hey, I was just calling to see how you're doing. The kids miss you, so yeah, just call me back or whatever. Click on I detested weakness. I detested the growing sense of realism. 1 week later, a stranger in a polo shirt presented me divorce papers as if it were any other Tuesday. Right on my front porch, I grabbed them from his grasp and shut the door. I ripped them open and exclaimed, unbelievable, he's actually acting in this way because of a pointless debate. I glanced at the documents, but I didn't actually read them. I didn't believe it. Arguments are common, and individuals frequently say things they don't mean. People go on, don't they? Not Troy. Though, after a month, I persuaded myself that it was all a ploy to get me to pursue him. Troy in the classic sense, he'll give in, right up till I saw her one night. She got tagged in a photo with him when I was browsing Facebook, lean as a girl. One of those I wake up at 5 a.m. kinds, blonde and slender. I went on her profile to see her yoga types. It was open, a rookie error. Her biography, incredibly blessed. I became lightheaded from rolling my eyes so hard. Then I noticed at a dining establishment. With his arm wrapped around her, he was grinning more broadly than I had seen him in a long time. She also captioned it, saying, I'm grateful for this man every day, this individual. My chest began to burn. I sat up upright and went through each and every post, tag, and heart emoji. I felt like I was excavating grave. The life I created was being lived by this lady, this lean. I had trained him to enjoy the meal, and she was eating it. She was enjoying the fruits of my labor. He didn't wait at all. He didn't stop. He did not weep. He simply moved on. I scrolled through his posts after clicking on his page. Nothing. He never posted about being free or finding peace, and he never even brought up the divorce. Nothing but quiet. However, the photo on her page was the most telling of all. I could Feel my jaw clenching in my temples as I sat there. My first impulse was to publish something snide, slick, or another Facebook status. Those who have recovered tend to forget the people who assisted them in their recovery. But don't worry, I'm okay over here. After posting, I waited as the likes poured in for a moment. It was satisfying as before, feel-good affirmation when you asked for it. However, that sensation was short-lived this time. I removed it by midnight. I didn't want him to see it, not because I felt about it. Sitting there that night, I came to the realization that Troy would not see it. He wasn't trying to find me, he was indifferent. I was watching on a screen, and Lean was laughing at something he said. I gave my lawyer a call the following day. I wasn't going to lose in silence. I was going to make it as difficult as I could if he was going to move on so quickly. Troy, do you want to appear joyful? Cool, after I get half, let's see how content you are. I no longer wanted him back. I had no desire for him, however. If I claimed I didn't want him to sense it, I would be lying. I would also make sure his new little blessed beyond measure girlfriend understood precisely what she was getting herself into if I couldn't have him.